Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. On today's show, we're going to be discussing New York Comic Con. Just this past weekend was the event, and I was actually there for attendance of 3 out of 4 days. Sunday didn't really have much going on, so I went Thursday through Saturday and got to go to a bunch of panels, see some cool people, and go just check out the entire area. So I'm going to talk about it. There's a lot to talk about, so that'll take up an entire episode dedicated to New York Comic Con. So first off, just for context, I've only been to New York Comic Con once before, a couple of years ago. Never went to any other Comic Cons really. So this is my first real Comic Con experience, and it's my second time coming here. So I kind of had a bit of an idea what to expect. This time coming into a bit more crazy panels, and basically this place is a madhouse. I mean, I have to say, like, I can only imagine how San Diego Comic Con is. Like, even in New York, it's mad in there. It's busy. It's chaotic. It feels like Black Friday the entire time you're there. It's just like, if you love it, you love it. If you don't, you want to leave immediately. But I think it's like heaven in there. It's awesome. A great time. And I got to go to a bunch of panels this year. Obviously, you can't go to every panel. There's just so many. And but I really made an effort to go to the ones I wanted. And with that being said, I didn't really have reservations for these panels because I was going pretty last minute, but I did get to wait in line for a lot of them on standby, which I have to say is actually pretty foolproof. Like, you're pretty guaranteed to get into a panel doing that as long as you're willing to wait. And I'm someone who has all that patience, so I was just waiting online for probably like over an hour for each of these panels, and that's fine, honestly. Like, if you're used to amusement parks and you're used to waiting for rides, like, this is a piece of cake. It's just, a little out of the way. Anyway, though, let's get started talking about it. First panel I went to was for The Penguin, and this is a show that is streaming on Max, connected to Matt Reeves' movie The Batman. Batman is one of my favorite characters ever, so naturally I was very excited for this show, and also I love the movie The Batman, and Colin Farrell's performance as the Penguin in that film. So very excited for the show, and I have to say the show is just great. If you're not watching it, what are you doing? Go watch it. It's really a good show. About halfway through right now, a little over halfway in, and it just keeps getting better, honestly. Like, I'm so impressed with this show. It's really, really good. And I was just really excited to see this panel because they had really basically like almost everyone in the big cast there. Colin Farrell was there, Kristen Melody was there, Renzi Feliz, Clancy Brown, and, even the showrunner, Lauren LaFranc. They had one of the main guys who was doing prosthetic makeup for the Penguin, which, I mean, if you see Colin Farrell, before and after the makeup, it is ridiculously impressive what they get on him. So, shout out to that guy and all of his work. But it was just a really cool panel to be able to see the cast there and really get to hear them talk about the show and the experience making it and all that. So they showed a few clips. That's a mid-season trailer they had, which was released online. They showed a few clips from episode 5, which just came out. And it was just a really neat panel. I mean, I will say there wasn't quite as much, like, in-depth discussion as I would have liked. Maybe not, it wasn't as passionate of a panel as maybe I was hoping it would be, but there was still a lot to go there, and it just was a very fun panel, great way to start the con, and Penguin was really cool. After that was Dune Prophecy, and this is a show I am still pretty mixed on. I love the movie Dune. I mean, right now, Dune Part 2 is still my favorite movie of the year so far. Amazing movie, but the show, it's a prequel, and it hasn't gotten my interest yet quite as much. Even the trailers have looked decent, but nothing great. And this panel kind of had the cast and the crew there. They weren't they sounded like excited about the show. It just wasn't really selling me on it. I don't know. None of it was really like getting me hyped. So I don't know what to really say about that. That wasn't a great panel. To me, probably was one of the weakest panels of probably was the weakest panel I saw of the whole con. But still, I mean, I'm going to check out the show when it comes out. I just didn't really get that excited for it. And I hope it's good, but there was also really just no one there, like, that I really knew also, like, no creatives or cast that really I was aware of, so I feel like that might have something to do with my expectations where they were at, because I just wasn't that excited for it. But after that was a panel for The Electric State, a movie that's going right to Netflix. It's made by Netflix, but reports are saying this movie cost over $300 million, which is pretty wild. But when you hear who's involved, you can see why. It's a great cast. But at this panel was the Russo brothers, who did movies like Endgame, Infinity War, Captain America Civil War. You know, if you're a Marvel fan, you love these guys. These are like the awesome directors of Marvel. They're going to be doing the next Avengers movie as well. But outside of Marvel, they are a bit of a mixed bag. They've done stuff like You, Me, and Dupree, Cherry, The Gray Man, movies that I'm not a fan of. And, you know, it's like you look at this movie, it's written by the people who did Endgame and Infinity War, so there's hope there. But the Russo brothers, after Endgame, have not been great. So I don't really know what to expect from them. But still, I'm always curious to see what they're going to do. They've made good movies before, so I was curious. But at this panel were two actors from the movie, one being Millie Bobby Brown and the other Chris Pratt. I was very excited to see all these people at this panel and just kind of hear their energy. And I'll just say, like, okay, first the panel starts off, right? And they were like, you know, you can't record anything, you can't take pictures. I don't really understand why the studios want that, because to me it's like the whole point of these Comic-Cons is like, you know, you should be getting word of mouth out about your shows and movies. Like, I understand, you know, you're showing like clips, you don't want those leaking. There were a few things shown from the movie that, like, I'm sure they didn't want leaking online that weren't put there, so, you know, that's probably why. But even so, I think it's just you want the energy online. Like, this is a big movie. I feel like Netflix should really be wanting everyone talking about it. So I don't know what they were doing about that. But in any case, I didn't really have any expectations for this movie going into the panel, but I was just curious to see the people there. And it starts off pretty cool. Like, they have some robots come out on stage and kind of like get people hyped. They show the trailer, which actually looked pretty good. I was pretty pleasantly surprised by the trailer. It got me pretty excited. And then the cast comes out. They're talking about it. The, you know, directors come out, the Russo brothers. They're talking about the movie and how much it was really like, how much it meant to them. And Chris Pratt was, you know, basically saying like he was kind of going to stay home for a bit, but then he got the script and loved the script so much he wanted to do it. He had to do it. And, you know, Millie Bobby Brown was talking about her being kind of nervous going on. Chris Pratt was just so chill with her. And that was cool. And then they showed an exclusive clip from the movie for about 5 minutes. It's a clip, and my expectations for the movie, like, just dropped. Like, if I didn't see that, I just went into the trailer, I'm like, okay, I'm interested. The clip just took any interest I had and basically just got rid of it. I don't have faith in this movie anymore. I'm sorry. Like, it was just, it looked bad. It looked cheap. Chris Pratt is like such a weird wig on that it just looks so awkward. And not to mention, after this panel, I didn't really feel like Chris Pratt or Millie Bobby Brown had good chemistry. That's just my takeaway from it. Maybe it'll be different in the movie, but just on stage they weren't bad together, but just like in the clip they showed, in the behind the scenes video they showed also, I just didn't really feel like they had good chemistry, which is a big problem. I hope that's not in the movie, but that's just how I felt. And so after this panel, I think I'm a little less excited for The Electric State than I would have been had I just not gone to it. So take that as you will. But it was a fun panel, just not really one that got me excited for the movie. So that's kind of the whole point gone. Alright, anyway. After that, so that was Thursday. Friday starts off with SpongeBob SquarePants. And this was a panel I was really excited for because SpongeBob is such a near and dear show to my heart. And I've always just loved watching old SpongeBob episodes. New ones, no. I hate the new SpongeBob episodes so much. They're so, like, dull and just lost the point of what made the show great. Similar to another show I'll be talking about later on this episode. But old SpongeBob is just so good. Like, when people say they don't like SpongeBob, I have to ask them, like, did you watch the old episodes like Band Geeks and Help Wanted and Plankton and all the ones with the jellyfish hunting? Like, it's just all those episodes are so great, and so funny and clever and original. It's a great show. But anyway, I was not like, this was gonna be a panel where they're talking about new episodes. It's the 25th anniversary of SpongeBob. So I didn't really know exactly what they were going to be talking about, but I had hopes, and I just tried the Wendy's Krabby Patty meal that came out, and don't get it. It was super disappointing. It was like, I don't even know what that was. It was just a Dave single with Big Mac sauce. Like, that's all it was. It was not worth the money. If you do go to Wendy's, go try the Frosty, though. The Frosty was pretty good. Like, pineapple mango Frosty, that was solid, but don't get the burger. That was a waste. Off track, though. Back to the panel. Panel was really awesome, though. Like, they had the whole cast there, pretty much the main cast. The guys who played SpongeBob, Patrick, Mr. Krabs, Plankton, Sandy. I'm trying to think of who else. Squidward, Larry the Lobster. Pretty much anyone in the show that's pretty big, you name it, they were there. And they basically made the one thing that I was dying to have happen come true, which is they did a table read for the episode Band Geeks, my favorite episode of SpongeBob, for good reason. A lot of people love that episode. And it wasn't the whole episode, unfortunately. I was a little bummed about that. But just hearing the cast read live, like, part of the Band Geeks episode, and just, like, the guy who plays Patrick going, like, is mayonnaise an instrument? Like, that was just it was so funny. I was, like, dying laughing at it. SpongeBob is such a good show when it was great, and this is what that panel reminded me of, just all the great memories watching SpongeBob. Unfortunately, that was also kind of, balanced with clips from new SpongeBob, which they're releasing a 25th anniversary special, I think, and a Christmas thing. The Patrick Star Show, all that looked awful, and I want nothing to do with that. I'm not watching any of it, but old SpongeBob, it's there forever. I love it. So they did some table reads, 2 table reads, another from a Halloween episode. I forgot what it's called, but it's the one where SpongeBob, like, kind of dresses up as a ghost on Halloween. So that was neat. That was a very fun panel. Probably my favorite panel in the entire thing, honestly, just because it really, like, elevated my day. I didn't have a great start to the day, which I'll get to later, but this panel really made up for all of that. It really, like, heightened my mood, and it was the panel to beat. It was such a fun time. And next panel up was Blumfest, which is basically, if you know Blumhouse, I've talked about them a few times on this show. They did stuff like Five Nights at Freddy's, and The Black Phone, and Imaginary, and Night Swim, and, Speak No Evil. They've done, like, any semi-decent to bad horror movie that, you can think of in the last few years. They probably did it. And this was basically a panel dedicated to Blumhouse. And they had Jason Blum, the producer from Blumhouse, the Blum in Blumhouse. He was there. He brought some filmmakers aboard and talked about the movies coming up next year. It was actually a really, like, they were hyped up. Like, they were really hyping up this panel. The people in it, they basically, once again, like Electric State, were like, don't take pictures, don't record anything. Which, I mean, to me, I don't like that they did that, but it does give off the impression when you're there, like, something big is going to happen. Like, they don't want this getting out. So you're kind of curious, like, what's going to happen. Also, it was an hour and a half panel. Most of the other panels were just an hour. So the extra half hour, you're like, what are they doing? What are they cooking in here? So we're going to see. And basically the panel starts off. They're talking about The Wolfman. They brought out the director, Lee Whannell, who did movies like Upgrade and The Invisible Man. 2 movies I really like. He's a great up-and-coming director. He also wrote the original Saw, another movie I really like. So he's on my good list. I really like this director, and it was awesome to hear him talk about The Wolfman. Trailer looked good. Honestly, like, I just have a lot of faith in this movie really being awesome. Only downside is it's coming out in January. January's not a good month for movies, if you know. A lot of bad movies come out in January. Sometimes it's surprising, but I have a lot of faith in this guy. I really hope the Wolfman delivers. I'll be very sad if it doesn't. But after that, Jason Blum brought aboard Christopher Landon on stage. He did some of the Paranormal Activity movies. Not that I'm too huge on those, but he also did Happy Death Day 1 and 2. Two movies I actually really like. I know people weren't as crazy about the second one. I actually think it's better than the first, to be honest. So he brought him on, and the actress Megan Fahey in their new movie Drop, coming out next year. And the trailer didn't really look great, but the concept's pretty interesting. I hope it's good, because, again, Christopher Landon just makes fun, quirky, silly, goofy horror movies, and they're not scary, but they're fun. So basically, Drop is about this girl who goes on a date and is getting like all these like airdrops at her table that's like making threats about her, to her family, and she has to find out who in the restaurant is dropping these things to her, doing the airdrops. It may sound stupid on paper. I think it actually could be a lot of fun, but it's Blumhouse, so you never know. And after Drop, they brought on Mike Flanagan, a director and producer who I really admire. He is one of the best people out there for horror right now. He's going to be making a new Exorcist movie, I believe next year or the year after. But he's done a lot of shows for Netflix. He's done some great movies too, like Doctor Sleep and Hush. So he's pretty big in the horror sphere. And he got to talk to Jason Blum about some of the other upcoming movies in the slate, like The Black Phone 2 and Five Nights at Freddy's 2. One of those I'm very excited for. The other one I don't care about at all. I'll let you guess which one is which. It's probably not the one you want me to say is that. But yeah, so that was pretty interesting. And I'm trying to remember. They showed a poster for Five Nights at Freddy's 2 that's online. And we got a message from The Black Phone 2 from the director, Scott Derrickson. He's filming the movie, I think, next week. Or this week even. And I'm so excited for that. And then they showed a trailer also for the movie Woman in the Yard, which I'm not even going to talk about. It looked terrible to me. It looks like your total standard Blumhouse garbage fest, so I'm not excited for that one. But that was basically the panel, I think, in a nutshell. I really went through that quick. But yeah, at the end, they surprised us all too with a free t-shirt, kind of like showing the slate of Blumhouse's movies next year. So that was cool. That was a really nice way to end the panel. So overall, that one was worthwhile. I'm glad I saw Blumfest. I always root for them, honestly. I mean, I think Blumhouse is a really admirable company because they really encourage filmmakers to do the movies they want to do. Like, kind of Jason Blum's motto is like, if you want to make a movie on a very low budget, we'll give you free reign on it, basically. But if you want to make something bigger, we're going to be much more... it's much more of a committee film, which is kind of what you see in like Marvel sometimes lately. With like, it feels like people are really just like taking notes, and like it's made by a committee, not by a filmmaker. So that's kind of what where that's at. And that was my Friday. All those panels were Friday. SpongeBob and Blumfest. Starting off Saturday was a panel I was really excited for. It is my favorite show ever, and that's The Simpsons. I got to go to a panel for The Simpsons, which was really awesome. It's their first panel ever in New York Comic Con. Usually they do, I guess, San Diego, but honestly, I think my expectations were maybe set a little too high. I didn't really know who was going to be there, but it was really just some of the recent writers on the show. Matt Groening, that was really cool to see Matt Groening. He's kind of like the illustrator. He kind of like, he's like one of the OG guys from The Simpsons. He created this show. And then Hank Azaria was there too. He plays a bunch of the side characters on The Simpsons, like Chief Wiggum and Comic Book Guy and Moe. So that was really cool. It was really fun to hear Hank Azaria do a bunch of the voices at the panel, and he was, reading a whole message as Comic Book Guy. So that was neat. And it was kind of fun to hear everyone talk about their experience with The Simpsons over time. Obviously, a lot of the people there were more modern, so they didn't have quite as much to say on, like, The Simpsons airing and stuff, but Matt Groening gave a few fun stories about like how The Simpsons came to be and how he was just kind of like pushing for more episodes from Fox when it was first coming out. They only wanted to like greenlight like 4 episodes, and he was like 13. No, you give me 13 episodes. So it's just wild to think of how far The Simpsons has come because it was a show that didn't have much faith from the people over at Fox, but like you look now, and it's one of the longest running shows ever on television. So, unfortunately, actually, because I think the show's pretty bad now, but in its prime, it's like, to me, it's peak television. Like, I love The Simpsons. So, they kind of also talked about some of the episodes this season at the panel. They kind of mentioned the series finale that aired, not the actual series finale, but like this episode that was kind of a parody of what a series finale would be if it was like written by AI. I think some people, I don't know, people like that episode. I thought it was a bad episode, but I don't know. There was that, but that was kind of it for Simpsons. After that is another panel I went to called Jim Lee and Friends. This is probably the only panel I went to that was like not movie related, but it was like all for comics. Full transparency, I'm not like hugely into comics. I'm not like one of those people who reads comics literally every week, but I've probably been reading them for around a decade now, and just I like reading the big stories, especially if a movie's coming out that it's getting adapted for a comic. I love reading those, and I just think they're really interesting, and I love the artwork in them. So Jim Lee's a big artist. He kind of had some people come on stage and talk about comics that are coming out. There's a sort of like a Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong comic. There's a sequel coming out for that, and a Batman Hush sequel that's coming out. This was all for DC Comics. Jim Lee is the current president of DC Comics, so that was really awesome. He had the writer Jeff Loeb come on stage too, who I'm a big fan of. He wrote The Long Halloween, which is one of my favorite Batman comics. He did a Superman story called For All Seasons. That's my favorite Superman comic I've read. He's just a really awesome writer, and it was just a really fun panel, really entertaining, very lively. And at the end, they kind of gave said look under your chairs. 100 people get to get a free signing from me and some of the other people at the panel. So my friend next to me actually won it, and the guy next to me also won it. I was like, what the heck? Like, I didn't win anything. Guy next to me, he had to go somewhere. He was like giving me his wristband, saying like, "Hey, you can go get a signature if you want." I was like so grateful to that dude. He, that made my day. So I got a signature from Jim Lee, Jeff Loeb, and a couple others. That was so cool. I'm so grateful for that. And my last panel of the day was Creature Commandos, probably my most anticipated panel in the entire Comic-Con. This is like DC's like introduction to their new universe James Gunn has created. James Gunn, co-CEO with Peter Safran, and this show was written by James Gunn, who I love as a director. He did movies like The Suicide Squad, the good one from a few years ago. He did all 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and a few other smaller movies he's done, and I just really like him. And this is like an animated show that's coming out. It's a sort of a spin-off of Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad, and it was just an awesome panel. I mean, James Gunn was there with a lot of the cast members sort of talking about the show. I was hoping for more peeks into the show. Like, they really just showed a trailer there that was put online. The rest of the panel was a real discussion with the cast on like what the show is like and sort of what the vibe is. So it was a fun panel, maybe slightly underwhelming for, people who had high expectations like me, but this panel honestly just had like really good chemistry between everyone on stage. You really felt like they were just like a big family on there. So it was just an awesome time. Not like the best panel of the whole thing, but honestly, it was just, to me, it was awesome seeing James Gunn. Like, he's making a Superman movie next year that I'm so excited for and have all the hope in the world for. Everything James Gunn has said, like, honestly, in this panel made me so positive feeling and excited for what he has, like, on the way. It's really exciting. I love everything they were saying. Now that's kind of it for the panels, and overall my Comic-Con experience was actually a really great time. Just like so many people there, and you could really just feel like great passion and energy from everyone who's there. They're all like in the same boat. Everyone just wants to be a nerd, and that's so cool. I love Comic-Con for that. There was one thing though I want to talk about here, which was a pretty big negative in my experience, and I didn't really anticipate talking about this, but I just think it was so poorly handled that I want to mention it. And that is my experience with a book signing from Alex Hirsch. I just want to start this off also. Alex Hirsch did nothing wrong. It's not on him at all. I just think the way the staff went about it is something that needs accountability, and I just really didn't like what was going on there. So let me just get into it pretty quick. So Comic-Con this year was having a book signing for Alex Hirsch's new book, The Book of Bill, related to the show Gravity Falls, one of my favorite shows ever. I have a tattoo of it. My sister has a tattoo of it. We just really love this show so much, and like a lot of people do. I mean, the show has a huge fan base. The autograph was free so long as you bought a book beforehand, which was like $20 in value, so great deal, really. And, the first day was Thursday that I went to get a signing, and I got there like 90 minutes early with my friends, thinking that should be enough time, just get online, just to get on and get an autograph. And next thing I know, it's swamped. Like the whole place is packed with Gravity Falls fans, more than I ever would have expected. But the thing is, it wasn't just like a first come first serve line. Like they had it so you had to wait until like another half hour had passed, and then they would just let everyone get a ticket until they just ran out of capacity and capped it. So basically, what you had was a lot of people just crammed together, like a Black Friday thing, where just like as soon as they open the doors, everyone's gonna run and like trample over each other. That's what happened to me and my friends. We were waiting in line where they told us to go, but the people who didn't and got there late and were just being like really obnoxious about it, they got tickets to it because they were right in front, so they were like the first people in. But my friends and I, who waited in line and did what they said, did not get anything. And that was really frustrating because it's just we waited normally like we were supposed to, and we got screwed over. So, and the people there had no sympathy. They were really not kind about it or saying like, hey, we really are sorry for what we had, what happened. And they didn't really take any accountability for it. I think that was just really put a damper on my day and just really ruined a lot of like my good feelings towards the con. And then not to mention after that, Alex Hirsch actually had a panel later that night. It was going to kind of conflict with Electric State, but I really wanted to see Electric State, and I understood that, if I got out that late, I might not be able to get into the Alex Hirsch panel. I was fine with that. They had an Alex Hirsch signing the next day, so I was like, oh, I may be able to get another shot at this. And one of my friends got online. He left Electric State early to get online for the Alex Hirsch panel and was waiting there for probably like an hour, and he didn't get in. Like, he didn't get into the panel. He was over an hour early for, I think. So, that's twice that day he got screwed over. And I was also really pissed, just like, that I didn't get a signing because we were waiting like over an hour early for this with people who also got there even before us and didn't get anything. That's what also pissed me off so much. There are people who got there like 2 hours early, spending their entire day waiting, and they didn't even get in to get the signature. So I feel terrible for those people. And that really just, I hate the way that was handled. But anyway, regardless of that and the panel that night, what happened was the next day, I was hoping they'd fix it. I really thought ahead and was like, all right, I'm going to get there first thing in the morning. Maybe they'll hand out tickets like first come, first serve, and then you can get in at the time of the autograph. But what it really was they said, all right, you can go like in another room, wait online there, and we'll start giving tickets out at like 11 a.m. And so I went with my other friend, and we waited for like an hour there. And I brought the book, I was ready. There was a line, but it didn't look too bad, honestly. Like, they capped it at 250 people the day before, and I was like, there's not even, like, probably 200 people here, so I should be totally fine getting a ticket. I was like, if I have to wait here, that's fine. So I waited, and, the line starts moving at the time at 11 a.m. We're moving, and then, like, probably not even, like, maybe 100 people in, they just capped it. It was like, all right, it's over, we're capped. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm here an hour this time, and I'm, like, so ready to get an autograph. So they capped it at, like, 100 people. And this time I'm, like, really pissed, because I'm like, all right, this is the second time I've waited, like, an hour just to get told, like, it's capped over something that, like, I was there perfectly on time for. And look, this time I understand, like, this was a normal line. This time people weren't, like, going over each other. Like, it wasn't as poorly handled as the day before. So I'm understanding this time, at least, of, like, all right, it wasn't my turn. But the problem was they never actually said how many people were going to get a ticket. And I was just like, you wasted my time again. You gave even less people a ticket than last time after you screwed everyone over. So I was annoyed. I went to go complain to people at the booth. They told me it wasn't, on them. They didn't really know how many people it was going to be. So I was like, I understand. I went over to another staff member, complained to her, and was like, just saying it's really unfair, like what happened. She gave her sympathies at least, which was nice, but it didn't go anywhere. And in the end, I just never got my signature. I never got my autograph. None of my friends did. And it was just really upsetting, honestly. Like, Alex Hirsch, I'm sure he's a great guy. He didn't want this to happen. I just think the way the staff handled it, especially that first day where we all did what we were told and then didn't, they rewarded the people who did the exact opposite, was just totally unfair and uncalled for. And I have yet to have anyone from Comic-Con really, like, besides that one girl who really felt bad for me, like, the people who didn't have anything to do with it are the people who gave me the most sympathy. Like, the people who told me, like, the people who were actually responsible for this happening just didn't care. And that really made me sad. And again, made me even more sad is the people who got there before me, the people who were waiting there the whole time didn't get their ticket. That pissed me off even more. So the whole thing was just totally uncalled for and poorly handled, and I think was a really dark, rainy cloud on what should have been a perfectly sunny day. But hopefully that kind of thing doesn't happen again. I'd like to stay hopeful that it'll be better in the future. Otherwise, I had a great time at Comic-Con. I would recommend going if, you're ever interested. It's a great place. It's a great convention. But that was a really, a one thing that I really hope never happens again. But anyway, that was a big ramble, and that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd at MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve the show. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.